On today's episode of Life's Potluck Buffet, I'm going to talk about making our work and our work lives light as a feather. So stick around. I'm John Paulus. Thanks for joining me. I guess this episode could be one of our spooky episodes. I think it would be great if the deck drew card number 8 about being a good ghost, because I feel like many people would associate light as a feather with the party game light as a feather, stiff as a board. I don't know if that's the official name of the game, but it's a trick. It's a kind of levitation trick. If you're not familiar with it, the idea is that you have to have a group of people, and one person lies there pretending to be a corpse. It says all very cheery, I know, and the rest of the group can easily, with one finger each, lift the person. And it's a trick because it's like the distribution of the weight between the individuals makes it quite easy for each person to lift their portion of the person's weight, and so it has to happen at everybody needs to lift at the exact same time. So that's why there's always chanting involved. That's the whole business. That's the main trick, is that it has to happen simultaneously. And so that whole game, which I know many listeners are familiar with, and oh, by the way, thank you for listening. That game was first recorded in the 17th century. We actually have an instance of children playing it in France. And that instance comes from the diary of Samuel Pepys. That's, for those of you not familiar with Samuel Pepys and his diary, he kept a diary in the 17th century for 10 years. And wow, were they doozies. There was a plague. There was London burnt down, wars, all sorts of things. So one of the stories he tells is a story recounted to him by somebody else about witnessing kids playing a game of what now is called light as a feather, stiff as a board, but it was in French, and their chant was in French, and it was very different. It still involved the being a corpse, but it's a different chant. And that was in Bordeaux in France. And it's a kind of funny story because the person was like, I couldn't believe these 4 little kids lifted this other kid's body. And so the person apparently asked a very large chef or cook to substitute for the kid who was being levitated, and they did it. The easy peasy. So it's a really cool trick, and just basically the laws of physics in action, and maybe a good physics lesson, maybe a good French lesson if you use the original chant. But nonetheless, that's the earliest account that we have, apparently, that I learned about, of the light as a feather, stiff as a board. And, oh, by the way, Samuel Pepys is spelled Pepys, but it's pronounced Peeps, like the marshmallow candy. And I think it would be I was thinking about this, that it would be real. What would Pepys, Peps, diary mean? And maybe if you're thinking of experimental marketing campaigns, imagine what it would be like to have something called Pepys Diary. When would that happen during the year? What would the whole setup be? I like to imagine a marshmallow peep and a quill, feather pen I don't know if Samuel Pepys wrote with a feathered pen. I assume so, just we all assume, don't we, that, well, you always picture somebody in 17th century writing. What's the first thing you think of? A quill pen. At least that's the first thing I think of. Now, I have absolutely no idea what Samuel Pepys wrote his diary in or with, or maybe he mentions in the diary, but that's it. It's many, many. I mean, it's 10 years worth of diaries, so that's, that's a lot of days, and that's also many volumes. So, but maybe now with the internet, we could probably easily search it to see what types of pens he talks about. Okay, so let's ask the cards today in honor of Samuel Pepys. What instead of worrying about disasters and and great fires and plagues, how can we be light as a feather in our work and life and make the work that we're doing as light as a feather? There's a hint from the actual game, and that's teamwork, because the only way to make a human being easy to lift is to have a number of people lifting the human being. And you can do it if at the same time with, very little effort, just a couple of fingers, right? For each person, because it's easy, because the way the weight is distributed. So, that is already a good answer. And let's see what the cards think. I'm hoping it's going to be card number 8, because that's, that adds to the spooky element. Most of the videos, I looked up light as a feather on YouTube, and most of the videos are dances. I mean, the popular ones are dances related to the light as a feather thing. So that's interesting. But let's ask the cards. On the bottom of the deck is card 50. Consider one strength you have, which was yesterday's very apt card, as they always are. And so I'm going to give the deck a shuffle in the ritual way that I do. Speaking of rituals, I should have a chant while I'm shuffling. That would be even more appropriate. I don't know what I would say. Now, maybe I'll come up with one. All right. And then I will see what card is sticking out. Okay, there's one that's intriguing to me, and I'm gonna grab it. Oh no, you got it. Cards, you gotta be kidding me. It's Passions Are for Hobbies. I had cards. These cards. All right, that's about the, a millionth time I've drawn Passions Are for Hobbies and cards. This is how they're testing me. The other day they did the same thing. I was talking about, how to, instead of spinning, instead of controlling everything, being expansive, like a figure skater when they're slowing down rather than like tightly pulling everything into their bodies and therefore spinning faster. When everything is spinning in our work and our lives, slowing down and being more expansive rather than trying to control things is the answer. And of course, this card came, remember I spun the deck, and of course, this card was on top. And I can't. And now this card is the answer also to today's question of how do we get some lightness in our work and lives. It's to understand that the things that we are passionate about are best for self-care, and it's good to focus on those things for that purpose. So think about that today. Think about self-care, being light as a feather, and having the mindset that doing things for your own passions are great for taking care of yourself and allowing yourself to lighten the load of the other things that you do that ultimately are work that other people need from you. And I'm going to have to take card 28 out of the deck. This is, I, how many times can I talk about it in a year? I don't know. Is there a limit to cards? Well, we'll ask the cards tomorrow, and no doubt we'll see. We'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll see if I draw card 28. I really thought we were done with card 28 the other day. So, I guess I was wrong. I'll see you tomorrow on Life's Potluck Buffet.